Justice to that is Ineka Ogboy. She is a baby food entrepreneur with a certificate in child nutrition. We'll be discussing healthy diets with less processed food for babies. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely our pleasure. Now, when we talk about healthy food for babies, especially when you're trying to avoid all the packaged processed food, it can be a challenge for a mother. We're going to start off from 6 months, like introducing food to baby, right?
Yes.
Please, how do we go about that? What's the best route?
Okay, so there's a lot of information out there concerning the first 6 months of life, which is the period of exclusive breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Everybody's familiar with that. But after that, there's a lot of confusion. People don't know where to start, what to give, what to offer their kids and in what amount. So there's just so many questions for moms or parents around that time. So there are many options that you can offer your child, and the best way to go is with home-cooked meals, because these are meals that your child is eventually going to end up eating with the rest of the family. So it's easier on the rest of the family. They're easily accessible, and especially if they're locally grown, you can get them when they're in season, so they're full of nutrients and all of those things. So it's easy to focus on the staples that your family uses regularly and just kind of incorporate that into your child's diet.
From 6 months? People usually say, no, you can't give the child rice yet. No, you can't give the child this or that. No, it's best to give the child this stuff. And it can be really frustrating, especially for a parent on a budget.
Exactly, exactly. So what usually happens is there's this idea that there's special baby food. And there really isn't. Baby food is just food. It's just that you have to present it to your kid in a way that your child can accept it, can absorb it, and would like it. So, for example, at 6 months, they probably prefer the foods to be blended, to be pureed, so that it's easier for them to swallow and digest versus, the whole foods in the whole form. Some people go with that route as well, which is called baby-led weaning, where they offer the foods in its whole form. But many babies enjoy and prefer the pureed foods.
Does it affect the child if you offer it in the solid form? Say, for example, the way you cook rice, but instead of cooking it in the chewy manner, you make it really soft. Is it a problem?
It's not a problem.
Are
so
you
basically, the most important thing is the nutrients that the child is getting from the foods. There are some babies who at 6 months will prefer the food in the whole form. So if you give them the blended ones, they will actually reject it. They don't want it. So you have to pay attention to your child and know what your child is trying to tell you.
So Ewa going is the way to go. That very soft beans.
Yes, you can go ahead with things like that. The only things that are off limits for, the age of 6 months is honey. Because, yes, honey
Still honey?
Yes,
even
they can't
though the
have
child
honey.
is up to 6? Oh,
yes,
wow.
you can't have honey until the age of 1 because they can actually get infected from it.
Okay.
Also, you want to be careful about hard foods, so hard, like nuts, things that can cause them to choke. So you want to be careful about things like that. But other foods, soft foods that are cooked, steamed, nothing is off limits.
Okay, so on a lighter note, Gary is all right?
I wouldn't suggest starting with Gary, but at the age of 6 months, a child does need energy in their diet. So you want to introduce your carbohydrates, your starch.
Like Eba. You can introduce it like Eba with soup.
You can do that.
But really soft Eba.
Really soft. You can do potatoes, you can do yam, plantain, beans. These are all great sources of complex carbohydrates that your child needs to get energy from.
I'm glad you've mentioned yam, beans, and the rest, because I really wish you could give me at least 20 food items locally sourced.
There are so many.
Please, I need this, because many parents are going through a lot trying to find the perfect food for their children.
Yes.
And at some point, you find yourself having to buy processed food that is expensive, or even the imported food, because somebody tells you, oh, this is much better for your child, not knowing that you can get these things locally. So please, just tell me.
So basically, you want to, like I mentioned, you want to focus on the nutrition that your child needs. So for example, babies at that age have an energy requirement so from your carbohydrates. Rather than looking for some imported, which are usually expensive, as you've mentioned, think about where you can get carbohydrates in Nigeria. Africa is blessed with a variety of foods. We have a lot growing in our soils. So just think about what you offer in your house, because that's what's going to be sustainable for you as a family. So we're talking rice. yam, beans, plantain, potatoes. There are so many options. Grains, all our corn and millets. We have all those grains, oats. There are so many options. Yes, exactly. So those are good sources of energy, good sources of carbohydrates. Also carbohydrates, you can also get that energy from some fruits as well because of the sugars present in them. So there's so many things that are available for children. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy those ones because, again, when they say, oh, dollar has gone up, then you're looking at your pocket and you're like, I can't afford this. Do you now reduce the amount of food that you're offering your child? No, your child still needs to eat very well. So it's better to look for things that are grown locally that you can sustain.
So that also brings me to something else. Some parents actually subsist, like let's say I want to give my child the blended food, you know, the processed food that I make on my own at home. And then I feel the need to add milk powder. By milk powder, I'm not talking about the regular milk, of course. I'm talking about the baby food.
Yes.
So is it all right? Do I need to add that?
So from 6 months, especially if a mother is no longer breastfeeding, if a child is on formula, then yes, you should be including that because milk, their breast milk or formula still remains a very important part of their diet up until the age of 2. So even if you're preparing these foods which are complementary to breast milk or formula, you still need to add that component. Yes, so you prepare the formula as you normally would and serve it with the foods. The child should also be drinking breast milk or formula throughout the day.
Wow, this has been very, very educational. I must say a big thank you to you. It's such a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so that's about it. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I'm sure you have too. We'll take this break. Wake Up Nigeria continues in a bit.